and Italy after already overtaking Spain, now the deadliest nation in confirmed COVID-19 fatalities.
Enough is enough. Go home and stay home.
Until we get almost everybody vaccinated globally, we still won't be fully back to normal. That's called the death panel, and you're not supposed to have that discussion. And so it's a wonderful thing to go in and create a broad identification system. And then the final solution is the vaccine.
Just to head off the conspiracy theorists, maybe we shouldn't call the vaccine the final solution. Okay.
People mention conspiracy theories that falsely linked Bill Gates to the virus 1.2 million times.
If there was ever a window to try to wake people up to what's going on, this is the window.
You must help to spread this information so that others have a chance to see the bigger picture.
Watch what happens when a team of hitmen meet him first with a pie in the face.
If he's ready, a thumbs up. We're gonna bring you right on, and good stuff. Let's welcome the one and only James Corbett to the show, the award-winning investigative journalist and creator of CorbettReport.com, which everybody should have bookmarked by now, I hope. Welcome, James. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the overly kind introduction, but my big brain is still warming up as it's just 9 a.m. here in Japan. So still
yes.
First cup of coffee.
Well, cheers
There you
to
go.
for sure. Enjoy the coffee. We're just going to have a brief little gab anyway. And I know you probably got a big day ahead of you as you're just starting. You probably are going to talk all day. And I'm very happy that you're here. And it's not the first time you've been here. We've already gone through your origin story, and we've got to know who you are, and now we just want to catch up to where you are now. And how has life been in the post-COVID era, let's say, in the last 2 years? How's life been in Japan for you, James?
That's an interesting way to phrase it, because I guess we're far enough out that it has finally come true. The prediction that I was making during the COVID scamdemic era was, a couple of years from now, people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. Yeah, whatever. That was just some craziness that happened, which seemed absolutely incomprehensible. You couldn't even imagine that at the time we were living through it. But here we are. And now it is like, oh, yeah, that thing happened. Right.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's hard for me to think of it in those terms, other than to say that things have returned to usual here? Question mark? I guess. But what does that even mean?
Maybe?
In the new normal, right?
Yeah. Have you guys been going through kind of your experience, kind of the new stuff that they're trying to bring out, some of the mandates and new stuff too, or has that hit you guys yet?
No, we haven't seen any of that yet. I've been watching the bird flu freak out from afar, but we haven't been seeing that directly yet. There has been apparently a market market increase in cases of flu in Tokyo this year. But other than that, I haven't heard anything on the biosecurity front lately here in Japan. Although, I believe, I didn't even see the update on this, but I know that the US CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, have opened, a branch in Tokyo. Why?
Oh, well,
I don't know.
How
but
lucky.
Apparently that happened.
Wow.
Well, lucky for you guys.
Yeah. And so last September, right? At the end of September, I was attending a conference that was being put on by the World. It was formerly the World COVID Summit. Now it's the World Crisis Summit. Goes around and essentially delivers addresses to various parliaments around the world and what have you. And so I was here at the Tokyo edition of that, where they had a day for the general public where people came and listened to lectures. They also went to the houses where the national diet here in Japan, where they addressed the Senate, the Japanese Senate and Parliament. Well, kind of, question mark. I mean, it was an open invitation. Only 2 members actually came. I was there for that. And some of the presentations were quite disturbing because this was around the time that they were starting with, what is it, the 8th round of boosters or whatever they're on for the scamdemic juice. They had gotten to the point where, of course, they're releasing the Replicon self-amplifying mRNA vaccine. And so there was a lot of information that was being presented about that was quite worrying. And one of the presenters was talking about a bioweapons facility that's near Tokyo that was actually being moved even closer to the center of Tokyo around the same time that the US CDC is showing up and opening branch offices. So, don't worry, guys.
Lots of coincidences, of course.
Yeah. And that's such something we're not even thinking about anymore, really. Like you said, the COVID era happened. This bird flu is kind of happening, but to me, that feels like more of attack on chickens and our livelihood than it is about the. It's
definitely related, and I think that's actually a good thing to point out. That I believe Ian Davis was talking about this recently. At any rate, the poly crisis is this word that the Davos crowd has been kicking around for years now, and I think. Yeah, we're going to start learning what that word means because everything is connected, guys. If there's some sort of bird flu thing, well, that means we have to go in and regulate agriculture. And while we're at it, why don't we put in mandates for humans? And it all, we're all connected, which is this concept of One Health that the World Health Organization and the UN and all the other globalist bodies have picked up on in recent years, which is essentially the idea that your health, of course, is not about you individually. It's about not just all the people around you, but all the animals, the environment, everything. So that means they get to come in and control and manage every aspect of the world around you in the interest of your health, of course.
Of course. It's for your health.
Safety.
Health and safety. That's where it always is. But it's unfortunate that works so well as it does. It continuously works and works and works every single time. James, we're in an interesting point in our reality today, specifically, the inauguration of Trump. But I still want to focus on the past a little bit. And during the COVID era, nothing regarding COVID, but you put out a documentary in that time in June, I believe, of 2021 called The Brief History of Hopium. And we kind of called this episode Hopium this evening. And to me, that's probably one of the most important documentaries to share around and get people to digest, because the concept and reality of it is so awakening that it kind of shocks you into seeing things in a whole new perspective. Why was it important for you to focus on hopium overall and at that time?
I can't remember if there was a specific reason that prompted it at that precise moment, but certainly it was something that I had been observing for years up to that point, specifically and explicitly in the first Trump era, with the QAnon nonsense stuff that accumulated and reached a crescendo. And at certain points, I mean, maybe I don't really strategize to this extent, but at certain points, it is kind of like talking to a brick wall, because either people see through that kind of stuff or they don't. And when they're in the midst of it and they don't see through it, there's no information you could present to them that would actually get them to see the delusion that's going on. So at that point in 2021, when, JFK Jr. didn't magically arise from the dead and appear in Dealey Plaza to, lead the QAnoners to revolution or whatever nonsense was trending, I thought maybe there's a point in which people might be able to break from that delusion and I might get through to them. But of course, it wasn't just directed at those types of people. It was directed at really literally everyone who's involved in the mass political delusion that defines our era of human history. In some ways, I think in a sense, maybe it was better back in the olden days, when at the very least, everyone knew who the serfs and peasants were, and everyone knew who the lords were, and they knew the distinction that existed there, and whether or not they liked it, it was the way things were, and they could point and say, that guy living in the castle on the hill, that's the guy that's against us, and we're all just, eking out whatever existence we can from the dirt. We're in it together. But now, of course, no, it doesn't function like that anymore. We don't have that kind of distinction between, an elite class and the everyday peasants. No. We're all equal, and anyone can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and what have you. To the point that, of course, I like to think of it as reboots of the Matrix, iterations of the structure of control. We've reached the point where people now have bought in so thoroughly to the idea, no, the government is us. See, we get a chance to throw our suggestion in the slave suggestion box every few years, and there we go. Now, look, it worked. 2024. They were able to reselect Donald Trump. See, so it works. And that was funny to me because literally the first thing I saw, I think, after Selection Day in the U.S. was Joe Rogan. And literally the first thing he said in the first podcast after that was, turns out elections work. Who knew? which to me is just, I mean, that is the exact type of delusional thinking that I was trying to address with Hopium, because it's remarkably easy to get people to buy back into a system that was completely and utterly written off. Right? Yeah. 4 years ago, they were able to pull 20 million votes out of a magic hat somewhere that didn't exist and, whatever. But they weren't able to do it this time because you voted harder. So the system works, guys. Go back to worshiping the system. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about in all of this.
Those numbers that we had in the election are totally legit this time. It was all rigged last time, but the numbers we got for Trump this time, that's exactly what it is.
They just couldn't do it for some reason this time, right?
Yeah, it's interesting how it always, as long as it works out for your side, then it's okay. And it's the same thing here in Canada. As long as
let's talk about
on
Canada,
side,
because I am unfortunately, disconnected from the Canadian. Well, maybe fortunately disconnected from the Canadian political
It is
scene.
a clown world.
But Trudeau's on his way out. What's coming next, guys? Tell me.
Well, I still think it's Pierre. Pierre is the next. That's just the next person. But there's just all the theater of how they're going to rebuild the next liberal. For when the conservative hopium dries up, they're preparing for the liberal hopium for 10 years or 8 years from now, and that's all this is stepping stones to the future. With Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney, like. Devil and devil. It's I in the first hour I likened it to George Bush and Kerry back in the day as two Skull and Bones members fighting out, to who the leader is. So What do you think? Similar mindset? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, absolutely, it's going to be Pierre will be the next PM, and we'll have to see what takes over the Liberal carcass. But it seems like a Kim Campbell situation taking over after Mulroney. Like, whoever gets involved in now is just a sitting duck that will be, shot in the barrel. I mean, I don't know why Freeland and people like that would even want to take over at this time.
Well,
wouldn't
they
it
get
make more sense to take over in a few years, right?
They get to be PM though. They're selecting the next prime minister of Canada. So
for a few months anyway.
For a few months, Twitchy makes sense at this point to put her there just because of,
she's easy to throw out. She's she goofed up
and
enough.
I don't think she would ever win an election, right?
No, I hope not.
Oh God, no! I don't think anybody.
No one would actually
even
vote for her. I guess it doesn't matter because
heyday.
they could pull whatever out of the hat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
James, are you back to the Hopium side of things? Are you surprised that there's as many QAnon people still as there are today? It's still something.
I don't know what surprises me anymore. Yeah,
we see it here in PEI Canada. Like, it's crazy.
Nothing surprises you. Is that
what do you see? What is happening in PEI?
Dude, there's a guy up west who has a giant Q on his hood. Like, there are some
of his vehicle.
Of his vehicle, yeah. Like, there are some even here in Canada, there are some hardcore, like, where we go one, we go all people. Like, when the talk of this 51st state popped up, people were like, yeehaw, sign me up. Whether you were mostly the conservative people who are going to be voting for Pierre, they were all gung-ho for it. The people who've kind of given up on politics, a lot of them were into it. The liberals, they just want their liberal, like, they obviously Trump was going to kill them and it would be the end of the world and that sort of thing. But it's been kind of weird just to see the reaction to, hey, do you want to get rid of Canada over the last, month or so?
The cheering on of it. It's gross, really. But it's all the things that have been warned about.
A couple of things. A couple of things. First of all, I remember it was a few years ago, maybe when I was putting together the Hopium episode. I can't remember, but I remember looking at some old footage of like 2011 or something, footage of an NSA whistleblower, and I can't remember, not Bill Binney. It was another NSA whistleblower. Anyway, his name escapes me. But he was talking at some conference back in 2011, and he had the Q lapel on, right? The Q lapel pin. And I was thinking, like, that threw me for a loop for a second, because I'm thinking, like, Q? And this was like 2011, like years before the whole 4chan thing, right? And then that refreshed my memory. Oh yeah, the whole point of Q is the Q security clearance that is an actual security clearance level that is part of the US deep state intelligence surveillance apparatus. So yeah, right, that's where that actually comes from. And we're supposed to be cheering on the good guys in the deep state surveillance pits of the NSA, etc., right? Yeah. So anyway, that's about what I think about that. But yes, so the idea that people are now literally cheering on the North American Union, which I don't know what to say, because I have been doing this for close to 20 years now, and it was one of the core bread and butter issues that I was talking about back in 2007, 2008, 2009, the North American Union. Do you remember the SPP and Harper and Bush and Fox, was it, in Mexico? And they were having those meetings. There was the Montebello protest where the undercover RCMP officers were out.
Yeah, there was some good stuff out of Montebello that put into people's consciousness about agent provocateurs. I think that was a big thing that was exposed at that time. And I think it really popped that idea that this happens at these protest movements. So I forgot that was the Security and Prosperity Partnership meeting,
you know what? Here's an interesting little anecdote about that. Because when I started the Corbett Report, so that was 2007, right? And I was just freshly awoken, if you can use that phrase, however you want to put it. I had just fallen down the rabbit hole fairly recently. So my world paradigm had shattered, and I was, trying to make sense of the world, etc. And being a good Canadian boy, raised in, Canadian public school system and all of that, I was essentially, more or less liberal leftist by default,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Everyone is some flavor of socialist in Canada, at least by
Yep.
default. And I was somewhere along there. And that's the way, at least that was sort of my self-conception. But at this time, suddenly my worldview had shattered. I didn't know what was what. And I remember when I was casting around and looking for information and doing interviews and trying to find out more about SPP and the North American Union and stuff, it seemed a lot of the people that were talking about it were right-wingers. And suddenly I was talking to, far right conservatives in the US and stuff. And to me, that was really weird. It's like, oh, no, but I agree on this fundamental issue. And so, well, I don't know what this means politically with the left-right thing. I have now matured in my thinking with regards to left and right. And I now understand that the spectrum that they want us to believe is the totalizing principle of political thought is actually, at the very least, it's a two-dimensional grid. It's not a one-dimensional line, and there is a up and a down dimension. There is authoritarian and libertarian, and it doesn't matter if you're right authoritarian or left authoritarian. It's gonna suck either way.
And they're somewhere.
I have a more nuanced view. But that was the thing that stuck out to me. It's like, oh, okay, well, I don't think I'm some sort of right winger now because I believe these things, but they believe these things. So I think we have some shared principles and blah, blah, blah. What does this mean? Da, da, da. But now, fast forward like nearly 20 years, and suddenly it's those very people who are cheering the hardest for yay, North
cheering
American
it
Union.
on.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
And that to me, that points out the point is about authoritarian versus libertarian.
It does, yeah.
I don't want a government hovering over me, and I certainly don't want a regional government because, oh boy, it's run by the good guys who are on our team.
Yeah.
Even if I believed that, which I don't, I still think it would be nightmarish.
Yeah.
That we are stepping directly into the globalist plan that supposedly these people were against a couple decades ago.
I think it's mostly a Trump dream than anything, because like we've seen a lot of polls on the 51st state topic, and most of them are based on Trump being the president. But we've seen some polls that said, if Kamala was the president, would you still want to be the 51st state? And almost every single one of them is like a resounding no. And so it's definitely a hopium. It's that idea of Trump is going to save us all. Exactly what you talked about in the movie, which is why we keep telling people even today it's an important thing to watch. And so, because like I said, we see it even up here as we move forward.
And while we're talking about Trump, let's dive into it here at this point, because you did focus quite a bit in that documentary about Trump and that phenomena specifically. So today, on Inauguration Day, let's dive in. What are your feelings about Donald Trump, MAGA, and how it's captivated the planet at this point? I'd love to get your take at this point.
To me, actually, the captivation itself is more interesting to me than Donald Trump, who I think is a cipher for whatever people want to believe. They're going to believe about him, and they'll see the world through that prism, and they'll see what they want to see. But I think the fact that people are still captivated with this figure is actually part of the point. And at the time, sometime in 2021, shortly after he got out, I did a podcast episode called Precedent Trump, where I pointed out, I think what Trump fundamentally is Zaphod Beeblebrox. Are you familiar with the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yeah.
So in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the president of the galaxy was this Zaphod Beeblebrox character, who was this over-the-top, crazy, zany character who would, steal spaceships and do all sorts of crazy stuff that would get all this attention. And, of course, the entire galaxy talks about him, and he's this big point. But as Douglas Adams points out in the book, the actual ruling power of the galaxy was this, Senate or whatever that's ruling from behind the scenes. Zavod Beeblebrox is literally the character they put out in front to captivate everyone and get their attention, and everybody's talking about Beeblebrox, whereas he's actually running nothing. And that's kind of the way that I see the Trump character. I don't think that I don't think that any president is the most important person in the world and really running everything. I think at the very least, identifiably multi-trillion-dollar banking, financial, military, corporate, media, industrial complex that is the United States Inc. is really controlled by one guy who can come in and do whatever he wants, and he's just totally selected out of a hat by people. No, that's all nonsense. This is the character that you're supposed to invest all of your time and energy in. Listen to everything he says. To be honest, I think all of this Canada Greenland stuff, the one thing that I can't understand why people don't understand, especially after already having experienced a term of Trump, people know that he puts out these crazy, outlandish things that get everybody talking, which is really just the opening bargaining position for some sort of deal he's going to cut somewhere down the line to get 2% reduction on, tariffs on timber from the Canada or whatever it is. I don't think this is really going to result in Canada being taken over politically, but that's what people focus on because he said it. And oh my God, this has to now be the topic of discussion. So honestly, I think this is the character that is put out there to distract people, to direct them in certain directions, whereas the real ruling powers are going to do what they always do from behind the scenes in the real seats of power, and say the board of governors of the Federal Reserve and other places where they can actually influence society.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page, definitely on that, James.
Yeah, the hopium goes beyond Trump, though. What are your thoughts on people like Elon, who has seemingly become the next great savior of the world as he hiles from the stage?
Yeah. Again, yeah. In fact, maybe even more so with Elon. I think that this is a character that is being used as a front for an agenda. I certainly don't buy into the cult of Elon in any sense. I don't think he's some sort of world bestriding genius who is so up there in intellectual caliber. At least I have seen no real evidence of that. At any rate, yeah, I'm old enough to remember when Elon was the liberal hopium on the left side of the phony left-right paradigm, right? Where he was the cool, space engineer / electric car guy who was going to save us from global warming and talking about carbon taxes and all of that. And in the last few years, it's all changed. In fact, it changed right around the point of the scamdemic, which was interesting because I think it was June of 2020, Tesla had announced they were creating these mRNA microfactories to help in development of a potential corona vaccine, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he was already all over that until, the winds, let's see which way the wind's blowing. All right. Okay. I'm against this thing, guys.
Oh, we're against this now.
Yeah. And then he became the meme board, based, edgy, cool guy on the internet, kind of
super free speech.
And dons the dark MAGA cap and, parades around as people's leader. It is bizarre. But again, the most bizarre thing to me is that people buy it. They think this truly... This is who he truly is. I think people have finally started to see through that because of the H-1B thing and because of the gamer thing. I don't follow gaming, so I don't know the depths of this scandal, but apparently, it just goes to show, if he will lie about something as trivial as that makes no difference to him or his life or his bottom line, do you think he's going to lie about the things that make him the quote-unquote richest man on the earth? Because there's no one richer than Elon. Don't look into that, guys.
He's obviously going to play a big role, or the idea or this character is shaping our future. And looking at you released an article, the 2025 predictions there last week or 2 weeks ago, and in that your major focus up front was you think that 2025 is going to be the year of AI, and obviously social media and technology is a big part of that. Obviously, being AI. What talk about that for us. The year of AI, the challenges of AI, what you see coming, the
Mhm.
dangers of it, this world that you in your big brain are warning us about.
Okay. Well, let me preface this by putting in the caveat that is necessary because we're talking on the internet, so people will get their undergarments in a bunch, as it were, over this concept of AI. And there's no real such thing as artificial intelligence. It's all just models and it's programmed by. Okay, great, whatever you think AI is or
We
isn't.
get
I'm
it.
not even talking about that per se. I would say that the test for artificial intelligence for decades and decades and decades has always been the what's it called? It's going to slip my mind now. The Turing test, right? If you can converse with a machine and not know it's a machine, then hey, it's indistinguishable from intelligence. All right, well, we've passed that now, and people can
Yep.
pretty much do that with ChatGPT or whatever large language model. So now they're moving the goalposts, and now it's something else. Well, whatever you think artificial intelligence is or isn't, this certainly isn't AGI, at least not that has been presented to the public.
Yeah.
So yeah, whatever. So whether you want to think of this as the year of AI or the year of AI hype, sure, whatever way you conceptualize that, but we are going to be seeing more and more of this. And I say that advisedly because in my public role as somebody who gets in contact and feedback from the public all the time, I'm starting to see more and more and more feedback from people along the lines of, hey, I was chatting with ChatGPT and it said this, or hey, guess what, I got ChatGPT to adopt the persona of James Corbett and answer this question as if you're James Corbett, and this is what it said. And
Oh man.
this to me is the real worry, more so at least in the short term than some sort of Terminator Skynet scenario, is just the idea of people ceding their cognitive sovereignty over to the machine because
Oh yeah.
it's AI, so it knows, or what it says is somehow more real than what I can actually deduce for myself in the real world, because it's AI, it must know, or if it says it, then it's true. And this was exemplified in an email I got, I think last week. I got an email from somebody that was something along the lines of, hey, I managed to get the AI to think like a conspiracy theorist and tell me, what it thinks about the existence of viruses. And it said that blah, blah, blah. It came to the conclusion that there's no hard scientific evidence for it. So I love this now. And like literally 2 hours later, I got an email from the same guy saying, never mind, that was all junk. Now the algorithm's been tweaked and it won't say it anymore. So I'm over this. And it's like, what are you investing in here? You're investing in the ability of a large language model to produce or not produce what you already believe to be true. Yay. But the deeper point here is, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Her. It's a Spike Jones movie from 13 years ago or something. Anyway, I think that movie is more predictive of what's coming. The idea that people are going to start to form relationships with these large language models, and that will start to become the basis for human society? No, transhuman society. That's the direction we're heading. And the idea that we're going to be ceding over our intellectual sovereignty to this AI godhead, they've already started the AI religion, the way, or whatever they call it, I don't know, where you're going to worship the AI godhead, because once we reach artificial general intelligence, it's going to be essentially God. I mean, it'll know everything and it'll know it in advance, and it'll know. So we might as well start worshiping it now. So at the very least, it'll spare us when Skynet comes, they're worshiping us. We won't slaughter.
And we saw at CES this year putting that into robots now too. So like they had human model robots, female and male robots. That, I mean, they still, they were obviously still early models, so you could tell that it was a robot. But they're taking that again, like the Will Smith movie, like the iRobot. But now they're putting these AI into them. So basically, I mean, they're basically creating what it will effectively, as more and more training has happened to this, like this thing that's going to kind of have its own, we'll call it its own personality. It's not, but it is. And it's just, I mean, when we consider all the movies that have warned us about this stuff, it's just seems laughable that we're, not only like seeing it in the mainstream, but like encouraging it on and saying, yeah, let's go hardcore with it and let's do more. I mean, even myself, like how quickly I have allowed it in, like when it first came out, like when Chat GPT and stuff like that, I was like, I don't like this. I'm staying away. I don't trust this at all. But every now and then I'll pull up Grok and ask it a question, or I'll go to something like Sono or whatever it's called, and I'll make up a silly song for the kids or for my wife or something like that, because it just, they just slowly gaslight the world to allow you to let it into your life. And here we are, people who have said, I'll never touch that, just a couple of years later are using it on an average daily basis. It's bizarre.
And I'm not going to sit here on a high horse and look down on people like that. As I was saying in New World Next Week last week, because James Plata was talking about how he is now using it to generate his daily cover image for his daily podcast. And I said, yeah, it's a like a magical tool that, like, hey, I can instantly have a wonderful, photorealistic creation of pretty much anything I can possibly imagine instantaneously for basically no money whatsoever. Or I could go the route of, hiring some graphic designer to do this and going back and forth and getting something eventually after a few hours of, no, why don't I just instantly use the magic tool? Yes, of course, people are going to use it. But is there a way for us to stop the headlong slide into the inevitable transhumanist nightmare that's coming? Well, not if we follow characters like Elon and his Neuralink brain chip. So,
yeah. And there are a lot of things that we've been talking about over the last little while, like digital ID and the social credit system and all these things, this technological nightmare that is coming fast towards us. AI is training us to accept that, even, the Twitter, Elon put out a statement saying people are going to get deboosted based on their negativity score, and everybody went and checked their negativity scores. It trained everybody to go check and see what they're actually, this is what it's already doing, and you can see it on these small levels that
I will cite it for not the first time, not the second time, probably the 150th time. And the funniest thing is I can never, ever remember the actual quote. I should just commit this to memory. But trust me on this, guys. Look up Propaganda by Edward Bernays. It was his 1928 screed on essentially the PR industry that he was helping to foster into existence. And the very, very, very opening words of that are something along the lines of the conscious and intentional manipulation of the habits and opinions of people constitute the real ruling power of the people who are ruling behind the scenes. I've butchered that quote. That isn't the actual quote, but that's the sense of it. It's the habits and opinions. Forming the habits and opinions of people is the way to control society. And exactly as you point out there, the whole point of something like that may simply just be to habituate people into the behavior of going to check your score. And everything else follows from there, because there's no censorship like self-censorship. As long as they can train you, I used that word and my score went down. I used that word and my score went up. What are you going to start to do from there?
I know.
Following the metric, right?
Oh, it's a tangled web they weave, and we got to find a way to crawl that sticky goo. I don't know what I'm trying to say at this point, but you get the.
I was with you. Don't even. Yeah, I get it.
James, one of the things that we all love and appreciate about you is your dedication to solutions. It's not something that I very much appreciate about you, and I know everybody else does. But before I do that, I do want to mention that New World Next Week, you and James Pilato, is fantastic. Everybody should go watch that every week when you guys put it out as well. So definitely. But we love your solutions. That's what I was saying. I'm curious, as we enter this technological transhumanist nightmare, is there anything that you have on your radar right now that you're really excited about, or solutions to any of this nightmare?
Yes, there is. In fact, this is the funny thing. It seems to happen every year. At the end of the year, for the last few years, because I've been doing Solutions Watch since 2021, so it's this is the fourth year, right? At the end of every year, I go back and I do this big overview of every single Solutions Watch of the year, right? And by the point at the end of the year, I generally feel tired, as in, I don't think this is getting through. I mean, 90% of the feedback I get on Solutions Watch is, that's not a real solution. I don't like this. Well, this is stupid. So it is kind of a grind to do it. And I get demotivated. I'm like, well, maybe I don't know. Maybe I should try something different. Maybe people aren't resonating with this. And generally, when I do that roundup episode and I see every single thing that I've done over the course of the year, I'm like, no, this is good. And I don't care if the people don't like it. I like it. So I'm going to keep doing it. Yeah. But this year it was interesting. It wasn't just the year-end roundup that kind of gave me that. It's the fact that I have way more ideas for this coming year of Solutions Watch than I've ever had going into a year of Solutions Watch. There's so many different things I want to talk about. Because this, in fact, the entire concept of Solutions Watch came out of the Propaganda Watch, which I was doing 2017, 18, 19, 20. I started this series basically on a whim, because I remember seeing this Kia, your driverless future propaganda screed masquerading as a commercial for something that didn't even exist at that point, which was a completely driverless car. And it was this bizarre, like, Peter Pan versus Captain Hook bizarre fantasy thing. You got to see it. It's just crazy over the top. And in the end, Captain Hook gets trapped in this driverless car that drives him to the police station. So, like, yay! It was so bizarre. And I thought to myself, I got to do something with this. Okay, I'm going to start a new series, Propaganda Watch, and I'm going to dissect the propaganda and explain what's going on and sort of dissect it for people so that they can hopefully better avoid this type of propaganda and see through it when they see it, right? So I did that for years, 3 or 4 years. And it got to the point where I realized, because when I went into that series, I thought to myself, am I really going to be able to find a new piece of propaganda to talk about and dissect in an interesting way every single week? Like, can I really, can I do this? By the third, fourth year of doing that, I'm like, oh no, I could do this every single day. Like, there's just so much. But at a certain point, I started to notice I would be scanning the news feeds. I would be looking around. I would be thinking about things in that mindset. Oh, that would be a good piece of propaganda. Oh, that's propaganda. Oh, I can see that. And I thought to myself, what I'm doing is essentially training myself to look for propaganda. Why? I don't want to concentrate on that. I want to concentrate on things we can do about and actually affect the world around us. So in the exact same way, I took the leap of faith in the, okay, I'm going to start Solutions Watch. And I don't know. I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm just going to say every week I'll put out an episode looking at a solution. Will I be able to do this week in and week out? Well, here we are going into the fourth year, and I have more ideas than I've ever had for Solutions Watch. So that's important. And it spans the gamut from, okay, we're heading into this technological transhumanist nightmare. So there are different approaches you can take to that. One would be, okay, here is some technology that would actually harness the power of decentralization and allow us to, use the internet for the way that it's actually designed to be used, instead of all of us congregating on these few big tech controlled platforms and things like that. So here's how you can get more of your own experience back in your own hands. But on the other side of it, well, okay, but also there's the low tech or no tech solution, right? We could look at things that have nothing to do with the technology and how we can manifest ourselves as real human beings in the real world. There's community. There's forming community as a basis for example, finding different ways to transact with people monetarily. Because one thing that I've found over and over and over again is, yes, people who are excited about the idea of alternative or complementary currencies, they get excited about this idea. Oh, this currency is going to be so great. It solves all these problems. It's a wonderful thing. But nobody in their community wants to transact in it. Yeah. And it's because you have to build the community first. So I've spent a lot of time talking about building community, forming relationships as a basis for something like, hey, now we can have an alternate trading system, things like this. Again,
the community currency stuff
to talk about and different ways to approach it and it has now habituated me, instead of looking, propaganda. Now I'm looking, solution. It's what you look for is what you'll find.
And I think that's an important lesson for all of us to learn, that especially the need for solutions. When we're dictating that nobody's coming to save you all the time, that's a very black-pilled look at things in a way. It could demotivate people. So providing that that thought that we can handle this ourselves and motivating people to do it themselves it's a much different thing than telling people that there's no hope, there's no path forward, there's no nothing. That's an important distinction to make here. That
And I've had that experience myself, listening to some podcasts where the person was great at dissecting propaganda and talking about the bad things, but their ultimate message was, this is a generations long conspiracy. It's been around long before you existed. It'll be around long after you're dead. There's nothing all you can do is kind of smile and nod and go along with things and try your best. No, and after enough time hearing that, I'm like, even whatever I'm getting out of his analysis and dissection of propaganda, I don't want to listen to that message. I mean, that's fundamentally not my message. My message is, no, we are not spectators in some spectator sport where we're just more passengers on some theme park ride or something, just being taken wherever the elites want us to go. No, we are active participants writing the history books with our lives. And when we see that and take our power back into our own hands, just realize we do have power. We are not the helpless victims of some big conspiracy. We are actively helping to create a system that will combat or that will completely supplant the things that we don't want, or we're playing into the hands of the people that want to control us. Which is it? And you're making that decision every day. I am too. None of us are on a high horse. I drive a car that runs on gas. Am I a big oil minion, whatever? I mean, yes, we all exist in a system and an infrastructure and what have you. But the point is, we can take steps towards building the world we want, or we can just go along to get along. And I know which path I'd rather be on anyway.
Yep.
I think that's a good transition to talk of hope versus hopium. You're in your 2025 prediction article, you talk a lot about, or briefly about, the dream of unity amongst common enemy, and I know we've seen that a lot. I feel like we diverge ourselves as groups, so here's again your quote unquote right. Well, now the right gets split up more because I don't agree with this, and the left does the same thing, and then that gets split up even more, and then split up to the point where I've got 10 friends now. Everybody else, I'm like, I don't know if I can trust anything you're saying or anything. And so, but what you're talking about is, I think, hope versus hopium. And I think that's what creates that unity. And so maybe you can just, as we kind of get ready to wrap up here, I know you've got a heart out. Talk a bit about that hope and hopium.
Yeah, no, it's this is an important distinction because, yes, the hopium concept, if it's simply left at that, could be another form of black pill. Just everything. There's nothing that can ever come that will change this, and anyone who says otherwise. And sometimes I get accused of that because I'm not on Team Trump or what have you. Oh, you're so black pill, James. No. I think quite the opposite. I believe in hope, not hopium. I believe in hope, and the distinction is important because, as I point out in that hopium episode, hopium is like opium. It is the synthetic simulacrum of an experience of happiness. But the point is that it's a fake synthetic thing that will wear off, and it will make you addicted, and it'll ultimately leave you much, much worse off in the long run, right? It feels good for a second, but then when it starts to wear off, you need more and more of that fix. Whereas hope is the genuine, real thing that hopium is trying to simulate. And hope is the thing that really propels humanity forward. It is the rocket fuel that will propel us towards the great things that humanity can accomplish. And I believe that we can accomplish great things. So that to me is incredibly important, that we not lose, that we don't throw out the hope with the hopium. And my hope consists in not some political puppet character coming in and making things right for people. It comes in people realizing, oh, wait, my life and what I want to create in the world, I won't say has nothing to do. Obviously, there are outside forces that can affect that. But fundamentally, I am an individual sovereign human being who can make choices and can direct myself in certain directions, and that will have an impact. And it might be a tiny impact on the big scheme of things, but that impact may have an impact on somebody else who then has, and it's the ripple effect, right? And you can never, ever calculate that. And ultimately, I think it comes down to, say, maybe the ending of 1984. At the end, Winston Smith learns to love Big Brother because that is the ultimate victory for Big Brother. Big Brother can do whatever The system can torture you in room 101. I'm suddenly forgetting my 1984 law. Anyway, the system can torture you, and they can make you say, you know, for the 2 + 2 = 5 and whatever. But the moment when you commit yourself to say, you know what, I love Big Brother. You know what, this is good. The moment they can get you to commit to the system at that level is the moment they win. But as long as, at the very least, they can chain you, they can lock you in a cage, they can do whatever to you, but they can't change your mind, your heart, your who you are at base. I am a free individual, sovereign human being making choices. I have control over my own brain, at least until Neuralink puts the brain chip in me. Right? So for that, we have to retain our humanity. That is my hope. As long as the human spirit exists, as long as we are able to maintain our cognitive independence, there is some, they haven't won totally. The they, them, those haven't won totally. And I don't think they'll ever win as long as the human spirit exists. So that's why it's extremely important to me to maintain that and not to fall down into the transhumanist nightmare, no matter what propaganda comes along to tell me that Elon Musk is the greatest person who ever lived.
That is so beautiful, James. That is so well said, and an important distinction as we keep trying to wake people up to the dangers and power of hopium, because it is a powerful, powerful drug, and it works very well. The Trump hopium worked very, very well. And here we are today with the path forward as we keep going. James, going into 2025, 2 questions. 2025 and beyond, do you ever make it back to Canada, first of all? And second of all, what are your plans for 2025 beyond what you have planned with Solutions Watch and all those amazing solutions that you only teased us about? You didn't tell us anything. But what are your plans here for this year? And yeah, do you ever get back to Canada?
It's been several years now. It was pre-scamdemic that I was there last. So I am definitely due for a trip with the family. I'm not sure it's going to happen this year because we're going to be very busy as a family this year. But I will get back at some point, and I'm sure I will not recognize anything or anyone because it'll all be completely different than when I left 20 years ago. Yeah. I've been in Japan for, actually, this is my 21st year in Japan. So I am at the point where I've almost lived as much of my life in Japan as I did in Canada. So
you will basically be visiting a foreign country.
I used to joke about that, but it's very, very true. Like Canada is. I'm not really Canadian in any sense except what I was going to say the Queen. I guess the King thinks he has ownership over me.
If you ever do get back here, like it would be some sort of conference or something, a James Corbett conference, it would be amazing just to have an opportunity to be in a room of people that share your like mind would be an amazing opportunity. So if you ever do, make sure you do something like that in Canada. It would be fantastic.
I think I will have to do that one of these years. I don't know if it's 2025. But in terms of content that I have coming up, you know what? So about a year and a few months ago, my video editor, Brock West, he's Australian. He lives in Vietnam. He came over to Japan and we recorded a bunch of stuff in person for a couple of things I was working on. One of which was The Future of Food, which was kind of a documentary style production that I put out last year about swirling around, obviously, the takeover of agriculture and the replacement of actual food with fake lab generated garbage, etc.
Another must watch, everyone, by the way.
I think it's important, and hopefully, I mean, again, I don't put any faith in the political system, but if again, the MAHA stuff, the Make America Healthy Again, I don't even care if RFK Jr. and everyone else is on the level or not. The fact that people resonate with that, the fact that people are thinking about that, the fact that that's important to people is a good sign. And that's a sign, again, they can spend billions and trillions of dollars propagandizing the public and trying to make us swallow their garbage, literally. But people aren't having it. And, I'd rather have organic, real food rather than the ultra processed garbage. Anyway, so that was something that we released last year. We recorded another documentary style production at the same time that Brock is still working on editing it and putting it together because we have so many projects on the go at any one time. So sometime in the coming months, that will be happening.
It's
I
amazing.
will spill the beans here. It's a couple of years ago now. I wrote an editorial series in my subscriber newsletter about descent into madness, not descent into madness, no,
Mm.
descent into madness,
Mhm.
talking about the pathologization of political dissent and how they try to make political dissenters feel they're crazy. You know,
Mhm.
that's that sort of idea. And so I'm looking at that. And so I put together a documentary production on that, and it'll be
Cool.
out soon. Just next week, hopefully next week, the 8th annual Fake News Awards will be coming out.
Yes.
And for people who don't know, every year for the last, 8 years now, I've been doing this awards show giving out dinos, as in dinosaur media awards, to the biggest liars in the fake news media over the biggest fake stories. And it's designed to be fun and funny, but hopefully also to shed light on some real journalistic travesties that occur.
Yeah.
I don't know about anyone else. People seem to like it when I release it, but then it's like a digital fart
People
in the
were
wind.
talking about the
A week
dinos in our
later, no
chat
one knows.
earlier.
Yeah.
But
Oh, we love it. We all love that stuff.
I hope so. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
essentially over the years, it's funny for me to go back and watch the first one, and it was just another podcast, me sitting at the desk, whatever. But now it's turned into this elaborate thing, and literally, me and Brock spend basically all of January working on it at this point.
I
So
love it.
it's elaborate. It'll be hopefully out next week. It's all recorded now. It's just a question of getting it edited and put together.
The content you
And
put out, James, your output is ridiculous. It's crazy. From the blogs, the write-ups, your write-ups are books. It's just crazy how much
it is insane.
content.
It is
Yeah.
objectively insane. And the best feedback I ever get are from my critics who almost invariably they say something like, "This is too much, too elaborate for one person. James Corbett couldn't possibly be doing all this." And me, okay, fair enough. I know no one else on the outside
Thank you.
knows, but I know I actually do all this, so it's truly the best compliment I could get. Like, yeah, this
That's
truly is a
fantastic.
superhuman amount of work.
Yeah, when you know reality and people are trying to accuse you of something, it's just so hilarious. When you know the actual reality, it's
Yeah.
funny.
Mhm.
But here we are, James, and I want to make sure that you have some time before your next interview. So let's just talk about where everybody can find you. I'm assuming, first of all, that you're still not on Twitter. Is that correct? You're not on X.
That is correct.
There is an account on Twitter
Oh.
that is Corbett Report, and it says a
Mhm.
fan service. Do you know that this person is there? Like, is it?
It doesn't surprise me. I don't really follow it. I am totally fine with people starting a channel or whatever, as long as they indicate it's not me.
Okay, yeah,
whatever.
okay.
I don't
And
care.
they do say
People are going to
that
do
on
what they're
that.
going to do.
Mhm.
It's just when people try to pretend to be me.
Yeah,
I did I did a podcast a couple of years ago called "The Future of Censorship," talking about this was shortly after I'd been scrubbed from YouTube, and there was a YouTube page up called the Corbett Report that didn't indicate it wasn't me, and I was looking at people in the comments commenting on it like, "James, why did you scrub thousands of your videos? Why have you not released anything for 7 months?" Blah blah blah. I'm like, and I couldn't even if I'd wanted to, I couldn't even leave a comment to say, "Hey, that's not me," because that would
It's not
require me
me.
to have the Google account to log in to be able to leave the comment, right? Like, so it's this next level form of censorship that is craziness. I call it digital repersoning. And I talked to Whitney Webb about that recently, but she's been going through that. Anyway, crazy stuff. But yeah, so I know like there is now a Corbett Report, or at least last time I checked, there's a Corbett Report fan channel or whatever they call it on YouTube. I'm sure it's on Twitter and elsewhere. Again, whatever. I want people to spread the word and spread the info. So if that works, great. You know what? I have been sitting on my high horse, sitting out on Twitter and TikTok and all this stuff because, clearly it's not the place for me. Even the video platforms generally, people are now accustomed to longer videos, but even there, I still get feedback. Why don't you just say it all in 2 minutes? Why do you ramble on for 20 minutes? Because this is what I do. Sorry, guys. But I may swallow my pride and actually, plug my nose and be on some of these platforms, and because services like Substack will now make the little TikTok clips for you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
maybe I'll just auto post them. Don't think about it. Whatever. If people follow that back to the source and find the real information, I'm not going to hide my light under a bushel. I think it is the most important time to be getting this information out there.
Yes.
So, you know, this is the thing. Back in 2007, I remember the moment creating my YouTube account, thinking I would never create a YouTube account to like upload videos. Like, this was so not my life path. But I thought, well, I want to get the info out there, so here we go. And
yeah, we're in the same boat right now. I just joined TikTok like last week just to do it because
just as it went down.
yeah, well, that too. But you know, to get the word out there, we need to try and break through the matrix. I learned that from you. Put it out everywhere. Just get it out there, and hopefully it gets through and
get censored off every platform. That's my goal.
Yeah. We got one of your tunes coming up at the end of our post show with the whole vision, or your screw YouTube, the IP freely. So we used your Kodomo-san songs for our pre and post show song. You know, just let everybody know. And for sure, everybody can get you where? CorbettReport.com.
Thank you. Yes. That is the place to go. And as you see on the top bar there, the blue strip at the very top, there's all my platforms, Rumble and Odyssey and Rockfin and all that. But yes, CorbettReport.com is the place to, at the very least, bookmark. I mean, if you follow my Rumble channel or whatever it is, at the very least, bookmark CorbettReport.com, because you never know when some platform will go down. Right?
I love that category selection that you have here, James. That's fantastic. And I see 9/11 there. Is Trump going to bring us some 9/11 truth? Do you think? Last question. I got to bring up 9/11. Seeing you here,
I wore
holding
my breath,
my shirt,
waiting
so.
for the truth. Is this the same Trump that propagated that same tired old lie about the? I believe he said it was the Arabs or Palestinians or whatever he said that were celebrating.
Yep.
Right. But wait, that turned out to be who again? The dancing Israelis? Maybe we don't want to release that. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to see that.
And see what comes out. I'm still just waiting for how about the JFK records? You know, it's been like what, 60 years now?
Well, there's claims that he's going to, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Not hopium, friends. James Corbett, investigative journalist extraordinaire. Thank you very, very much for your time and everything you do. Friends, make sure you follow this man and get his perspective and keep on sharing it with everybody that you know. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Take care.
Oh, Chris, I hate it when the conversations have to end. That is the worst part.
They do.
It's just stupid. Oh, I could have had that conversation for so long. There's so much that I could ask James about.
Yeah. Well, shall we sing some songs to these folks?
I also love the music. So yes, please, Chris, that would be fantastic to end that beautiful conversation. And I do, friends, encourage everyone to go to CorbettReport.com, bookmark it, and share it with your friends. That man is a wealth of information. His past documentaries are all fantastic on the Federal Reserve, on 9/11, on every topic that you can possibly think of. And it's often things that many others aren't talking about. So go bookmark it, follow it. James Corbett. But first, we definitely will have some Chris Burke. Here you go.
We're striking matches on the TV, setting fires on our phones, burying crosses we believe, and dying on. When tempers flare, the flames fly higher, we soar closer toward the sun. But I like to think that too much damage it ain't been done. We're all so far apart now, and it's as deep as it is wide. We're about to fall apart now if we can't reach the other side. We gotta find a way across the great divide. Sometimes it seems that our convictions, side of the fence that we stand on, makes us all too damn different to get along. But I've seen strangers love each other like a mother does her son. What we see ain't only all that's going on. We're all so far apart now, and it's as deep as it is wide. We're about to fall apart now if we can't reach the other side. We gotta find a way across the great divide. We're all so far apart now, and it's as deep as it is wide. We're about to fall apart now if we can't reach the other side. We gotta find a way across the great divide. The great divide. When there's nothing left but the fire in my chest and the air that fills my lungs, I'll hold my tears and trade my years for a glimpse at kingdom come. On the other side of misery, there's a world we long to see. The strife we share will take us there to relief and sovereignty. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. In our own towns, we're foreigners now. Our names are spat and cursed. The headline smack of another attack, not the last and not the worst. Oh, my fathers, they look down on me. I wonder what they feel to see their noble sons driven down beneath the coward's heel. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. The road is dark, the way is lost. My eyes, they strain to see. I struggle forth to find a friend to light the way for me. Oh, brothers, can you hear my voice, or am I all alone? If there's no fire to guide my way, then I will start my own. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home. Oh, by God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home. By blood or sweat, we'll get there yet. By God, we'll have our home.
Goosebumps. And I'm not muted. Fantastic. But yes, Koala Mama, goosebumps. And we will likely, for the rest of time that we do this show, end with that note and belief that we will have our home again. With hope, not hopium.
Indeed. Great show tonight, Harris. Good chat. James, appreciate you so much. Thank you guys all so much for hanging out with us and chatting and all that fun stuff. Make sure you hit the little thumbsy uppy button and give us a follow and all that stuff. You know that we were on the front page of Rumble tonight, so that was pretty cool. Appreciate you guys giving those thumbs, and so hopefully that'll bring a few new people to come and say hi to as well. But
and new chatters.
Other than that, love it.
Chat room was chatting in the new chat room on BitChute, so that's fantastic. And Odyssey, lots of watchers there tonight too. So hello to everyone. Thank you all very much. Take care of each other, and remember to never give up hope, but give up that drug that is hopium. It's a dangerous one, friends.
Catch us later.